tried to take her pulse, and there was nothing. I put my mouth over her mouth and went to blow, put my hand back on her chest, and that's when I realised one side of her chest wasn't there.
Well, tell me what you see there then, first of all.
It looks like the 4 stages of development.
How does that make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel at all.
These were the disturbing details revealed by the suspect about the missing 5-year-old girl, April Jones, enough to send chills down the spine of everyone who heard them.
And you viewed all these photos. Were you into these photographs?
No.
Is this a build-up? Is this what was happening that morning? A build-up of frustration, maybe?
Why hasn't it built up before then?
Maybe the opportunity hasn't arisen.
Or maybe it's just...
Detectives were convinced that he was hiding something sinister, but when the truth finally surfaced, it left them stunned. On the fateful evening of October 1st, 2012, Coral Jones called emergency services after realizing her daughter, April, had been kidnapped while playing near their home on the Brynny estate in Machynlleth, Wales, around 7:30 p.m. But what happened next changed her life forever.
This emergency.
I've been kidnapped. Can you speak to me? She's gone off in a car with somebody. Somebody picked her up in a car or something.
Okay, what's the name of the child that's gone missing?
April Jones.
How old is she?
5.
Immediately after the call, officers from the Dyfed Powys police arrived at the scene and launched a massive search for April. Their efforts soon led them to the prime suspect. Within 24 hours of April's disappearance, a 46-year-old local man named Mark Bridger was arrested as the prime suspect on the afternoon of October 2nd.
He knew her. He was a local person. He saw her when we picked her up from school when he was with his girlfriend, picking her kids up.
Bridger was brought in for questioning immediately, but nothing could have prepared the detectives for his gruesome claims.
All of the evidence suggests that you have abducted April.
It happened exactly the way I'm telling you. I did not abduct April.
The detectives, however, were not ready to believe it, and the intensive interrogation continued.
I don't know where she is. Yesterday, I came down to see my daughter's teacher. She had parents' evening, and I then parked up opposite my girlfriend's house, which I believe is not far away from April's mother and father's house. I'd had a few to drink, and there was 2 girls on their bikes. I remember the dark-headed girl came behind the car. I looked to see where the other girl was, and I couldn't see this other little girl. And the next minute, the bike was there.
He claimed that he was driving along the road where April was playing when something terrific happened.
So when you got to the monument,
Yes.
is she in the car?
I'm trying to jog my memory to know what I had done.
Okay.
We were trying to narrow down exactly when was the last point he remembers seeing April. That was the specific agenda that we needed to cover with him in that urgent interview.
I ended up at the monument in Mach.
So what have you done there then, Mark?
I've then gone down by the railway station. I've turned round, I've ended up, I'm at the clock. And I remember her still being in the car. And that's when I realised
It's okay, Mark.
the colour had gone out of her.
Okay,
Her
right.
lips were purple. Paul and Coral are friends of mine. And I've killed their daughter. So I then drove out of Brynny. I remember driving down the back road. My intention was to get her medical help. I started the car up. As I went to pull away, the car, there wasn't a thud. I can't understand. The car rose up. As I opened the car, I walked round, and underneath the front of the car is now, I know to be April. She was only little. So I picked her up and I put her across my seat and put her in what is the offside seat, the passenger seat. Tried to take her pulse, and there was nothing. I put my mouth over her mouth and went to blow, put my hand back on her chest, and that's when I realised one side of her chest wasn't there. I'd obviously crushed I'd obviously crushed her little body.
Bridger appeared very emotional, shedding tears throughout the interrogation, but the detectives considered it to be nothing but crocodile tears.
He would visibly cry. And there was these teardrops that were dropping onto the paper, almost the size of a 10p piece. And then he'd look up at you, and there was nothing. There was no indication that he had been crying at all.
Bridger made the bizarre claims that it was all an accident, but due to his heavy intoxication, he couldn't recall where he'd left April's body after that.
You mentioned earlier about hiding her from the rain.
I wouldn't have buried her. I would have covered her or put her somewhere under shelter.
Are there locations that are personal and private to you that you would have laid April?
There's a cycle track just above my house, but I most certainly don't recollect being up there.
What detectives found particularly suspicious about him was his insistence that April was undoubtedly dead. But they knew that Bridger was lying right before their eyes because they already had a crucial piece of information that he was unaware of. Bridger didn't know that the eyewitness, April's 7-year-old friend who had been playing with her that evening, had already revealed pivotal details to the investigators. Her testimony became crucial in countering Bridger's story, as she was the one who'd been present during April's abduction and had ultimately led investigators to apprehend him.
They describe it as a small van, small on the front and large at the back. So that could be interpreted as something similar to a Ford Connect van, something like a Land Rover, and also that April got into the driver's side.
She mentioned that April had climbed into the driver's side of the vehicle, which led officers to suspect that the vehicle they were looking for could be a left-hand drive Land Rover. The search for the specific left-hand drive vehicle eventually took them to Bridger.
During the morning of the 2nd of October, at about 8 a.m, I had information passed to me through our intelligence cell to the effect that there was an individual named Mark Bridger who actually had access and owned a vehicle, a Land Rover, which was a left-hand drive. That was a significant step forward in terms of that vehicle potentially being the vehicle that was used to abduct April.
However, April's friend had never mentioned any car accident. Rather, she described a man standing beside his grey vehicle, talking to April, who then climbed in the vehicle willingly.
April's friend, who was out playing with her at the time, says that April got into the car, happy and smiley, on her own accord.
Detectives believed that Bridger was a familiar face to April, having worked as a lifeguard at the pool where she took lessons, which made her feel comfortable enough to trust him that day. To verify Bridger's claim, when investigators searched his Land Rover, they were shocked to find no traces of blood or DNA from April. There was also no DNA found on the tires of the car. Additionally, the accident site showed no skid marks or bloodstains. All the evidence indicated that Bridger was concealing a dark secret and April was never crushed under his car.
Nobody has seen this accident happen, and the only person that's saying that there was an accident was him.
At the same time, detectives were left haunted by the puzzling questions of why he'd cleaned his car and falsely admitted to accidentally killing April, as if he was ready to face the consequences. They strongly believed it was possible that Bridger had intentionally hidden April in any secret location and that she could still be alive. April's parents also remained hopeful about reuniting with their cherished daughter. But time was running out for April as she was suffering from mild cerebral palsy for which she needed medication every 24 hours. But with hours passing without any treatment, her condition was only at risk of worsening. Multiple search teams worked tirelessly, intensifying their efforts with additional equipment, including drones, and the search area was also expanded. Police even repelled search dogs into mine shafts and cave systems to assist in the operation, but it led to no results. April's parents became increasingly frustrated with the unsuccessful search efforts and made their own attempts, urging the public to voluntarily participate in the search campaign.
April is only 5 years old. Please, please, help
Coral's heartfelt appeal even prompted the then Prime Minister David Cameron to make a public request. Hundreds of civilians, some informed through social media, joined the campaign, which became one of the largest search efforts in British history. Sadly, April was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, a forensic team was dispatched to investigate Bridger's cottage in Mount Pleasant Sands. They meticulously examined every corner of that cottage, and what they discovered unveiled a reality far more horrifying than they had ever imagined.
As you walked into the front room, there was a shotgun above the fireplace. There were replica handguns and 2 pairs of handcuffs that were very openly displayed. He had a background in working in an abattoir. He had a number of knives that were in the property.
As authorities stepped inside the house, they were hit by a strong odor of cleaning products, which raised immediate suspicion. Then they found jumbles of messy clothes left piled on the staircase. But as they entered the living room of the whitewashed cottage, they were baffled by the disturbing sight of the messy living room there. A pair of trousers was draped over a chair, while papers and cardboard were scattered across the floor. Amid the chaos, they made a stomach-churning discovery of a concentration of blood on the wood-burning stove and beneath the carpet in front of it. Newly purchased cans of Strongbow cider were found stacked beside the stove, but the gruesome discovery of 17 small fragments of charred bones in the ashes of the wood burner made their blood run cold. There were also bloodstains on the sofa. As they moved from the living room to the bathroom, they found blood on the wall and charred bone fragments in the bath plug hole. But the horror within the house was far from over. The discovery of Bridger's laptop revealed more disturbing secrets, deeply rooted in his dark psyche, which would haunt April's family forever. The laptop contained hundreds of disturbing images, including sadistic and violent content involving minors and graphic adult. It was also loaded with gruesome images of child victims, including their corpses, and graphic images relating to notorious child murder cases like the Soham murders of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. Additionally, Bridger's search history indicated that he'd scoured social networking sites for pictures of young girls from Machynlleth. Among those images were April Jones and her 3 teenage half-sisters, which he'd carefully categorized. After further analysis of the evidence, forensic experts found April's DNA and confirmed that the bloodstains belonged to her. Although DNA couldn't be extracted from the bone ashes, experts raised the horrifying possibility that they belonged to a younger individual, potentially April, and could be her skull fragments. But detectives believed that April's whole body wasn't burned, and those bone fragments were left behind amid the chaos of Bridger's cleanup process after the heinous offense. However, the forensic analysis of Bridger's clothing revealed more troubling discoveries.
They found a tiny bit of blood on the inside collar of Bridger's fleece, and there was also DNA present from April on the inside of his jogging bottoms.
From all the evidence found, it became very obvious that April could not have survived such injuries, but locating her body became a daunting challenge for the investigators. So the detectives again had an intense interrogation with Bridger, aiming to delve deeper into his twisted mind for any clues about April.
They're difficult interviews to conduct because we're going to talk about graphic images of children.
Tell me what you see there then, first of all.
It looks like the 4 stages of development.
How does that make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel at all.
All right. The next image, what do you see there?
Right. Obviously, this is a young girl, could be between 8 and 12. There's nothing about that to me at all.
Oh. And you viewed all these photos. Were you into these photographs?
No.
Is this a build-up? Is this what was happening that morning? A build-up of frustration, maybe?
Why hasn't it built up before then?
Maybe the opportunity hasn't arisen.
Or maybe it's just...
But a more disturbing reality was yet to be revealed.
You can tell me where she is, but you won't. You know where the body is. You know where she is. Did you intend to murder her?
No.
blood has been found on the wall of the bathroom at your house.
Right.
And this blood gives a full DNA profile of April Jones.
The only explanation I've got is obviously if I've got blood on my hands, if I haven't dried my hands, you flick your hands, I've gone for a wee. Obviously there was only a very minute amount of blood, which I've said from the beginning. I never ever recall having blood from the injury or from April's body
And you made that
on me.
Yeah, I stop you there.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Question I have to ask.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that blood there because April was in the bathroom?
Not at all. Not that I recollect at all, no.
So far, the detective knew that Bridger wouldn't easily admit to his actions, so he pressed him with more direct questions.
Explain to me how and why you assaulted April.
I did not assault April. There was no assault on April.
Did you suffocate her?
No.
Did you use a sharp weapon?
No. All my knives can be checked.
All of the evidence we have suggests that you have abducted and murdered April with a sexual motive. Therefore, the reason that you're not telling us where the body is because the discovery of her body will provide the evidence of this.
Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Bridger refused to acknowledge his heinous act, preventing investigators from knowing what he'd done after the killing.
Unless there's anything else that you want to say, I'm going to conclude this interview now.
All I want to say to Paul and Coral that I'm sorry for what happened, and that if I, in my heart of hearts, knew where she was, I would tell him.
Before we continue, if this case already has you on edge, you'll definitely love what we've kept just for our subscribers. We've got 10 dark, exclusive episodes on Facebook Subscribers Hub. Cases too twisted and gripping to release here. Become a member and unlock them now. Let's dive back in. However, the detectives weren't ready to give up. By connecting all the dots and witness statements, they reconstructed the probable sequence of events from October 1st, 2012 and uncovered grisly theories regarding the disposal of April's body. Detectives found that Bridger, who had 6 children with 4 different women, had recently ended his relationship with his partner, Vicky Fenner. On the morning of October 1st, they exchanged emotional text messages where Vicky wrote, "You were my love, I just can't do it." And Bridger responded, "You were my life, babe, you meant everything to me." The detectives found it surprising that Bridger's partner had never sensed his hidden dark intentions and had loved him unconditionally. However, his love for Vicky faded within hours. He took the day off, and by noon, he was on his computer reaching out to random women for dates, sending messages like, "Interested in fancy meeting up? No strings attached. Sorry for the hurt." Then he fell back into his depraved acts. His internet search record revealed that at 12:11 p.m., he'd Googled cartoon images showing young girls being. He then downloaded disturbing images where a minor was seen bound with gaffer tape, being forced into inappropriate physical activity with an adult. Shockingly, a roll of similar gaffer tape had been discovered from Bridger's Land Rover dashboard, which detectives suspected could have been used during the crime. He'd viewed and saved images of a friend's teenage daughter from Facebook, along with many photos of local teenagers. All of this pointed to Bridger's growing frustration that day, which would ultimately culminate in his horrific actions. Then, just before 5 p.m., he drove his Land Rover 3 miles from his home in Mount Pleasant to Machynlleth, where he attended a parents' evening for one of his children. There also, he was seen using his computer in a dongle, continuously browsing the internet throughout the afternoon. He then reportedly invited his daughter's 10-year-old friend for a sleepover at his home, which was eventually cancelled for some reason. But the detectives believed that if that sleepover had happened, the girl would have been his victim, as he was actively seeking out his prey. Later in the evening, Bridger started prowling around Brinnygog. A witness noted his strange behavior as he was seen driving back and forth along the same stretch of road. Another woman spotted Bridger around 7 p.m. near the garages in camouflage trousers. He walked past her without any acknowledgement, which she found strange as he was typically very courteous. She noted that he seemed to be lost in his own thoughts. He then again drove to the Brynny estate, where April was playing near her home. That evening, after her swimming lessons, Coral allowed April to play outside during late hours with her friend because she insisted. This was when Bridger spotted and targeted her. Since Bridger was a familiar face to April, she didn't hesitate to get into his car. Then around 7:20 p.m., he was seen leaving the town. The vehicle was next spotted around 8:30 p.m. when a neighbor saw it reversing into the driveway of Mount Pleasant. Detective Superintendent Andy John believed that April was probably by Bridger, either at a secluded location or at his cottage in Mount Pleasant. He suggested that the 8:30 p.m. sighting might have been Bridger coming home after getting rid of April's body parts. But others theorized that Bridger had spent the rest of the night attempting to eliminate every trace of April and sterilize his tools, including the damaged boning knife. However, Detective Andy disclosed some harrowing possibilities. According to him, Bridger's expertise as an abattoir worker had enabled him to cut April's body into small pieces. As an outdoorsman with extensive knowledge of the mountains and valleys around Machynlleth, he was able to skillfully conceal most of them, scattering the remains throughout the countryside. He also buried some pieces in his wood burner, where skeletal ashes had been found. However, his experience in the cleanup job proved somewhat effective, but he failed to erase all traces of his sinister act. Besides this, detectives considered some other possibilities. On October 2nd in the early morning, Bridger was spotted near the Afon-Dulas riverbank.
That witness will say that they saw Bridger walk into his car, described as what appeared to be carrying a plastic black bag like a bin liner.
The witness claimed that there was something inside it. During the time of the offense, the Dulas River, located less than half a mile from Bridger's cottage, was flowing heavily, which suggested the possibility that he'd thrown some small pieces into it. A special search team also scoured the water for April's remains, but found nothing. Detectives believed that the remains had been cut into small pieces and deliberately damaged, which made it difficult to locate them. The search for April continued for months, and by the end of April 2013, the police finally announced that they'd ceased the search after being unable to locate her body. After this thorough investigation, the detectives evidently knew Bridger's horrifying secrets that had driven him to commit such a vicious act.
There may be sadistic elements to his personality whereby he enjoys the distress that he causes to others. He probably was someone who had fantasized about abducting and murdering a child. He certainly was primed and ready for that opportunity, and that was something he'd visualized in his head and something that he wanted to happen. This was somebody who was interested in This was somebody who probably had a long-standing interest in children.
However, this was not his first offense. At the age of 19, he was convicted of firearms offenses and theft. In 2004, he again faced charges for battery and threatening behavior, and by 2007, he received his fifth conviction in an assault case. It was shocking to see a criminal like Bridger move freely in the disguise of a gentleman, but his past revealed that he was a cunning individual skilled in deception. In the 1980s, he relocated from London to Wales and reportedly worked as an abattoir employee, hotel porter, mechanic, welder, and firefighter, considering himself capable of doing everything.
You got the impression that there was very little that he hadn't done in his life. He was jumping from one job to the next. He'd worked at some jobs longer than others, but my guess is he was very much a jack of all trades and master of none.
When he moved to Machynlleth, he falsely claimed to be a former soldier to gain trust and social recognition. His lifestyle suggested he wanted to inhabit a fantasy world, viewing himself as adventurous. But in reality, he was a psychotic and perverted.
We knew he was a liar, but to believe that he was capable of what he's done, the stuff with the children, the stuff on the computer, you'd never have believed it. You'd never have believed it.
However, investigators considered the possibility that April's murder was spontaneous and not specifically targeted at her. Any vulnerable minor could have been Bridger's target that day. Unfortunately, April was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mark Bridger's trial started on April 29, 2013, under the presiding judge, Mr. Justice Griffith Williams. During the trial at Mold Crown Court, prosecutors described Bridger as a cold-hearted murderer who had crafted a web of lies and half-truths to escape accountability for his truly horrific crime. Surprisingly, on January 14, 2013, Bridger pleaded not guilty to the charges of killing April Jones, but admitted that he was probably responsible for her death. During the trial at Mold Crown Court, prosecutors described Bridger as a cold-hearted murderer who had crafted a web of lies and half-truths to escape accountability for his truly horrific crime. Surprisingly, on January 14, 2013, Bridger pleaded not guilty to the charges of killing April Jones, but admitted that he was probably responsible for her death. He claimed that he had accidentally struck April with his car, and due to his state of intoxication and panic, he couldn't recall what he'd done with her body afterwards. Although April's body was never recovered, compelling evidence against Bridger was presented before court, including digital and forensic evidence. Dyfed Powys Police's high-tech crime manager, Mervyn Ray, testified that the defendant had a long-standing interest in child exploitation materials. His laptop contained a large collection of such content, including cartoon images depicting very young girls. He frequently looked for such materials online and saved some of them on his laptop. His online searches included 5-year-old girls on June 8th and another 10-year-old girl on the 4th of July. The jury was presented with additional graphic images, including a fatal speedboat crash victim in South Africa, a French schoolgirl homicide case from the 1990s, and a disturbing murder of a Turkish child. Crime manager Mervyn told the court that Mr. Bridger's laptop held 100 to 150 disturbing images, of which 65 met the criminal standard and others were deemed to be in a borderline category. Forensic experts also testified in court that the blood samples collected from various areas within the cottage were a match to April's DNA. Additionally, 4 purple polyester fibers found in the Land Rover were identified as originating from April's coat. Finally, on May 30th, 2013, after the 6-month-long trial, Mold Crown Court found Mark Bridger guilty of April Jones's abduction and murder, as well as perverting the course of justice, and sentenced him to life imprisonment. He was classified as a Category A prisoner, the most dangerous in the country, and was incarcerated at Wakefield Prison in Yorkshire. But his notoriety came with its own surprising twist. In July 2013, Juvenile Ferreira, another inmate, attacked Bridger with a knife in an effort to force him to disclose the location of April's body, for which Bridger needed 30 stitches and surgery. However, during his time at Strangways Prison in Manchester, Bridger admitted to the prison chaplain that he'd thrown April's entire body into the river Afondulas, but authorities didn't find his account credible. After this horrific incident, April's parents launched a widespread campaign against child pornography, receiving support from several national media houses.
It seems to come down to one thing: somebody has to lose a life or several, and then public opinion has to force these companies into doing something.
Following their efforts, Prime Minister David Cameron granted the Internet Watch Foundation greater authority and power in the UK to search for and eliminate abusive content, collaborating with the law enforcement. In just a few months, the IWF took down more than 13,000 of these web pages from the internet. As a result, in November 2013, search engines like Google and Bing updated their systems to block search results for child content. Claire Lilly, child safety lead of Google, expressed that the company would firmly protect children and users from harmful content and would implement a proactive approach to tackle such content. 10 years after April's tragic death, IWF Chief Executive Susie Hargreaves remarked that the power given to them after her murder was a game changer for internet safety. She described April's death as a wake-up call and appreciated April's family for their courage and doing everything possible to prevent it from happening to other children. However, the IWF continued to face challenges. While working to identify and remove abusive content, they recognized a national crisis where children were being tricked into filming themselves at home, making them more vulnerable than ever. Susie expressed her worry that online child is unlikely to be completely eradicated as it's become a global problem. She also shared some alarming statistics, noting that the IWF has observed a significant increase in this type of crime during the COVID-19 lockdown. Before the pandemic, there were 300,000 individuals in Britain who were identified as posing a risk to children. Surprisingly, by 2021, that number had increased to 850,000. Also, in the first 3 weeks of the pandemic, there were 8 million attempts to access child abuse images in Britain across all internet service providers. With all these concerns, it can be concluded that more action is needed to protect children and create a safer environment for them. In November 2014, the Welsh government demolished Bridger's cottage, which surely provided some sort of solace to the grieving family.
It will be a closure for us, but only on this house side of things. I mean, ongoing other things, ongoing people and stuff, we'd really want to hit them hard. But for now, this is one chapter closed.
Though justice was served for April, the tragic incident left lifelong scars on her family. Psychologically affected by the tragedy, Coral developed agoraphobia and severe depression, due to which she couldn't leave home without Paul. However, her only support system crumbled when Paul was also diagnosed with encephalitis, causing swelling in his brain, which further complicated their lives. Due to his condition, he experienced memory loss. However, April's room, which was full of her favorite things, her teddies, clothes, toys, and pink bike, would always remind them of her joyful presence.
Being a mum, I love her. She's my little Thumbelina, like a little diamond. You'd never want to let go.
Before we conclude, we extend our heartfelt condolences to April Jones's family and loved ones. What are your thoughts on this case? What are your thoughts on its effects on society? Was Mark Bridger's sentence adequate for such a horrendous crime? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more such episodes.